Seattle, they brought me. You can see the cell blocks in the video I did with you, and the cell block I was in is cell block 6, Pabellon Safe, and they put me in cell 632. Now, once I was in there, they put you in the cell. It's designed for 2 people, right? But there's actually about 20 people sleeping in these cells. So there's not a lot of people can't even lay down on the floor. There's no space at all, and you can imagine the tension as well with all these people inside room. And the weaker people or anyone who has charges like beating their wife or stuff like that, they have to sleep in the bathroom. So you can imagine how that goes. Um, I've got a couple of stories about people like that too, and how they got treated. It's pretty insane. But yeah, it's just overpopulated. 20 people in a cell designed for 2 people. They lock you down at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then at 6 they open up, and it's like a small city in there. There's about 9,000 prisoners, and every cell block has a little store where they sell the green, the white, the browns, the gray, and down there there's phones too. Now these phones are just used for people to get money. They actually let you make the call. They don't charge you, but you have to ask for money. Now there's a bank account where you can send things to, as you know, and they end up taking 20% off the top of the money that's sent. So it's a big business for them. If you can imagine how many people call their families and try to get money, for food, clothes, blankets, anything, because the prison doesn't actually give you anything. They're supposedly given it's like $40 a day for each prisoner to ensure they have good food and everything else, clothes, et cetera, et cetera. But they don't give you anything. They just keep that money, and a lot of people suffer in there, especially during the cold months.
So did you get along with your cellmates?
Yeah, my first cell I did. The cellmates weren't really the problem when I first came in there. Um, but what happens is every time you get into punishment, and I got into the punishment area like 6 times because, when I'd be out in the cell blocks, out in the actual prison itself, people try to test you. And you can't bow down. You got to fight, if not, they're going to look at you as weak, and then you just become a victim repeatedly. And when you fight, you get sent to the punishment area. There's 3 of them. One is Alpha Lima 2, which is 24-hour lockdown. The other one is El Ocho, Pabellon 8, Subblock 8. And it's the hellhole in there. That's where all the bad people are. And a lot of people buy cells in there, like the mafia, and they have their own cell. And people get put in their cells. And if they want to victimize them, you can imagine what happens. There's lots of things I could tell you. I don't know how much I can say on here, but it's pretty horrible. Now, after they send you to the punishment area, it's usually about 2 weeks, and then they send you into a different cell. So after the punishment area, they send you to some random cell, and that's where the problems. You might have gotten along in your first cell, but they send you to a different one and get out of control because every time you're just getting moved around, and eventually you're going to be put with people who aren't nice, to say the least. But my cellmates were never really the problem. It was more the guards. And after the fact that the dude who gave me the phone, and when that happened, the person who came in charge of the prison wasn't so fond of what was going on, and they ended up stealing my YouTube account because I'd used his phone to log into it, as well as my Buy Me a Coffee and other things that I had at that time, and had their way with my account basically, and there's nothing I could do. They wouldn't let me use the phone again. They took my account, and the government was pretty pissed at the first guy who actually let me use the phone and let me do that call. He actually took a lot of heat for letting me call you and use the video. It caused him a lot of problems, and yeah, that's when things changed, to say the least. I started getting treated very differently, and it's dangerous in there, to say the least. I still have wounds that haven't healed due to the fact they use lances. They'll get like a knife and tie it to the end of a broomstick, and they'll rub raw pork on it. So when they stab you with it, it doesn't heal. I can show you a wound I have right here.
No,
I've
don't
had this for
show me the
about
wound.
3 or 4 months.
Don't show the
Oh
wound.
yeah,
Don't show the wound.
I got
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. I got stuck with a lance there on that. I got stabbed on my right leg, and then I got stabbed here on the neck, in the back of my neck. So, and it doesn't heal for months because of the raw pork they rub onto the blade. it infects. And yes.
All right, so viewers, if you've just tuned in, we're with OG Shadow live, fresh out of prison in Mexico. OG Shadow's been a friend of mine for years out of Sinaloa. He used to be doing the work with you know who, but then he changed his life around and became a YouTuber and started reporting on what was going on over there, the wars between the different factions. Anyway, he got put in prison. He goes in, and Mexican prison is no joke. His links, his new YouTube channel, his old channels were all hijacked. I put the link in the live chat. I put the link in the description box. His donation link, buy me coffee's in the description box. Well, so he goes in there as a YouTuber, as someone who was working with a different faction in the past, and they're questioning him, and they put him in a cell with 20 people, and then he gets heart checked, challenged 6 times. So take us through in as much detail as possible, please, OG. What happened the first time you got checked?
So I was actually going into one of the stores they have that's called the Snail at Caracol, and they have several stores that aren't in the actual cell block. Now, I was gonna buy a pack of cigarettes, and it's crazy. The cigarettes are really expensive in there for Mexico. It's $5 a pack. And while I was in there, somebody came up and they just pushed me, and I turned around and they started saying kind of like some racist remarks to me about being a gringo and stuff like that. And I kind of ignored him for the most part. I was trying to avoid the problem, but then he put his hands on me again on my shoulder, and I told him to let go. He didn't, so I stuck him with an elbow, like right, in his mouth, and we started going at it. And he had a friend who was on his side, and so I ended up fighting both of them. But the people actually in the store, that are the mafia store right there, they don't like violence there, and they saw this dude started, and he was basically, causing problems there. So they broke it up and kind of saved me, if you want the truth, because it was 2 against 1, and I didn't take any serious wounds that time or anything, but it could have gone that way very fast if it wasn't broken up, I'm sure.
And then what happened the next time?
Well, the next time I got sent to the punishment, okay, they lock you down at 3 o'clock, right? But a lot of people pay a guard, and you can stay out later to like 7 or 8, and you can go where the phones are, where you can receive money. And if you're asking for money or things like that, they let you stay out of your cell block, right? Because they're gonna make something the 20%, right? A lot of people use it just to not get locked down, and that's honestly what I was doing. I didn't feel like getting locked down and sent to the cell right at 3 o'clock. And the guards changed shift at 6. Now, right around 6, I started to head back to the cell block, but one of the guards that had personal beef with me because he knew I used to work with Mayo's people, and this prison is controlled by the Salazares, which are mercenaries for the Chapo's people, and there's beef, right? The guards are on the side of the mafia. It's not like in the United States where the government and the criminals are separate sides. They actually work together in the prison. The mafia are basically proxies of the guards, and they work together, like I said. Now, one of the guards stopped me on the way back there, and I told him I'd already given money. He said, "But you haven't given money to me." And honestly, I didn't have any more money. And that's where it went. He took me right into the punishment area for being out after the hours. And you get like a slip, a piece of paper that's called a certificado. And what happens with that is when you're going to get released, they use that against you, and you can be hauled for every certification that they give you, which is like the punishment paper is like 3 months extra, right, on your sentence. So I ended up going that time to Alpha Lima 2, and the cell they put me in there was no joke. There's a dude who was into a lot of satanic stuff. The walls are just written up with all types of occult things, and he basically extorted people who came in there. He tried to make you call your family to get money, and they'd take it from you basically. Now I wasn't going to let that happen, so we got into it, and that's when I got stuck with the lance inside there. They really messed me up because it didn't get broke up, and there was 4 or 5 of them. When I got taken out of the cell, my eye right here, I couldn't open it for about 3 months. I had 2 broken ribs, and when I laid down, it just hurt to stand up. It was insane the pain I was in. My head swelled up, and they told me I might actually lose my eye, and insane. So I was in the actual clinic there for about a week, and they were, monitoring my recovery. But they sent me back to another punishment area, just with different people.
OG,
And
you went over that altercation quite fast. Could you describe the altercation with the
okay,
lance and what a lance is to the viewers?
okay, it's a knife that they put on the end of a broomstick, right? And that's where they rub the pork fat on it. That's why I have the wounds I have that haven't healed still. And dude was trying to get me to call family or friends to get money for him, and I wasn't going to do it. So we got into it, and there was a bunch more in the cell than me that were on his side, and they tore me apart. To be honest, I tried to defend myself, but when you're in a tiny cell and it's 4 or 5 people working you, and they have a lance, it's something else. Now, most of the wounds weren't fatal until he stuck me here. When he stuck me in the neck, that was different. I realized that things had changed. That they're trying to get blood, and yeah, I was pretty close to losing my life there. To be honest, uh, it's probably the worst beating I've ever taken in my life. And there's no one to save you, no one to stop it. They have weapons as well, and you just get thrown in this punishment area. And on top of that, what they'll do if you're weak and you do call your family and stuff, they'll also, when your food shows up, okay, you can't leave the cell 24 hours a day, so they bring food to you 3 times a day. They'll just take your food, and it's called putting you on a diet. And they'll do that until you call your family or friends. They'll basically starve you on top of the beating. But because I stood up against them and got into a fight with them, that didn't happen like that. But it's pretty insane. Jojo, I saw your comment, brother. Much love, good dog. I miss you, Jojo. Stay up, homie.
Shout
My
out to
link, there's a
Jojo.
link down on my channel. So just send me your information, brother. Get in touch.
So you're getting asked, where did they get the pork fat from? Is it from the kitchen or brought in?
From the kitchen. From the kitchen. Actually, a lot of the meals they serve are pork. Like they do 3 times. I'll tell you guys basically. There's a different food every day, right? So, like for example, on Sunday, the meal is mole, but the other 2 meals are the same every day. In the morning, you're always going to get a tole, which is like a heavy shake. How would I say, like cornmeal, something like that. And they give you a piece of bread. And then the actual good meal is, like I said, the middle day meal. For example, Sunday's mole. And after that, they give you beans around 3 o'clock. And it's the same every day. And they're just undercooked beans. So the only good meal actually is the lunchtime meal.
All right, let's go back to the altercation then. So they chop you in the neck with the lance. Why did they stop? Did the guards come, or why did they leave you?
Well, because they basically beat me into submission, to be honest. I was on the floor with broken ribs, bleeding all over the place. And they just left me there. And the next day, the guards saw me, how bad my condition was. And they probably decided not to kill me because they wanted to get money out of me. So they probably figured they'd beat me into nothing. And then the next day, they'd probably do the same thing and try to get me to call my family and friends. And that would keep going until I did so. So they weren't trying to kill me because they don't get money out of it. But lots of times it gets out of hand. Like they stabbed me in the neck. So they might not have necessarily had the intention to kill me first off because they weren't going to make money. But lots of times people die because they're beating you and sticking you with a lance. You can imagine things get out of hand.
All right, so is there any kind of medical treatment in there?
It's a joke. It's honestly a joke. They have antibiotics and stuff, and they're always expired. And the guards take you down to the clinic, and the people there are just cruel to the prisoners. If you have wounds, they're just really rough cleaning them out, and they really aren't too happy, to treat you at all. And they basically give you nothing. Sometimes they'll give you a shot of antibiotics because the wound's infected. But like I said, it's expired, the antibiotics. The medication doesn't really work. So medical treatment is basically a joke in there. Yeah.
All right, so they they try and clean you up. The medical people, it's a joke. And then they put you in an area of the prison where the guys who can attack you can still access you, or you removed from them.
They put me back in the same punishment area, the same cell block, but in a different cell. And as a 24-hour lockdown, they don't have a chance to hurt you if you're not in the cell with them. And the cell they put me in, I got along with the people there, thank God. And they actually helped me recover. When the meals were brought and stuff, they'd bring it to me. That I wouldn't have to get up because of my broken ribs. And I was blessed to be able to actually put in a cell with people like that, and made a good friendship with 7 of the people there. One of their brothers was actually a good friend of mine, and my compadre actually ended up killing his brother. Unfortunately, that's how the beefs are. And so it's crazy how things are connected. And I was in there with, a brother of a good friend of mine that came out and had beef with my compadre later on. So it's a small world sometimes. And I was blessed to be put in that cell and with good people. They helped me recover. And because I was already in the punishment area, and then I got in another fight, they gave me another certification because I was already in the punishment area. And now instead of being in there for 2 weeks, I was going to do 2 months because you're already in the punishment area and then you got in a fight again. The guards look at it like, another reason to punish you more. Even though I wasn't really fighting, I was being attacked and just trying to defend myself. They don't really care.
So after you got chopped in the neck, was that one of your lowest moments?
Oh yeah. Not being able to walk or even breathe basically hurt, for the ribs. And then this got infected. I tried to show you the one on my left leg. You told me not to show it. It also got infected. And it's been about 3 months and it's just barely healing. And they stabbed me on my right leg too, trying to incapacitate me, stabbing me in my leg. Yeah, definitely a low point when you're just being beaten to submission by a bunch of people. You have no chance. And they have a lance, basically a spear, and they're sticking you. I honestly thought I was going to die. I put that on my kids. And I said a prayer, don't let me die here. I don't want to die here, and thank God I didn't.
And do you think that your new cellmates were like your guardian angels?
Most definitely. And there was a little bit of respect in there. They knew who I was on the outside, and the fact that I knew as one of their brothers really helped me out. And they definitely were like guardian angels. They really did help me recover and were really friendly with me. And they kind of respected me too because I didn't bow down when I got heart checks. And then in the other cell, when they tried to extort me basically, I didn't let that happen either. So they kind of respected that and were really, they were nice to me to say the least. And God bless them. They definitely did help me. And I was at a
All
point
right.
there I wouldn't even defend myself. I was so hurt. If they would have put me in another cell with the people who wanted to mess me up, I was already messed up. It wouldn't have been hard for them at all to finish me off.
Wow, man, I can't imagine what that does to you mentally. So you said there was 6 altercations. You've described 2 of them. What was the next one?
Okay. The next one, I started actually working in one of the stores there they had at a cash register. All right. Now, it's not like a cash register like you think. You're just writing everything down. They give you the money, you put it in the box, it gets registered. Now, someone decided to steal something from the store. And when that happens and they don't find out exactly who it was, everyone who's working gets punished because they look at it like, oh, you don't want to tell us who was stealing here, and you work with him, you're protecting him, you go to the punishment area again. So I got blamed for someone who stole a damn stereo from one of the area that we're out there from. It's like a tower. They call it the tower, and the area is called Alpha Lima 1, and it's 2 stories. It's like a big tower. You think now the top story, the person in charge for the mafia in the store, and that pavilion in that cell block sleeps on the second floor. On the first floor, there's a cash register and the actual store. Now, someone had actually walked up when the dude wasn't in his bedroom, and they ended up taking a stereo and several things, and everyone who was working got sent to the punishment area. And before I got
Oh,
sent there, they beat the shit out of me with a bamboo stick, and then they gave me tablazos, what they call it, where they have this big board. Gracias, hermano. Gracias. And they just beat you into submission, the guards, before they send you to the punishment area because you were stealing, supposedly, or involved with, stealing.
So they
I'm gonna take a
beat
sip
you
of
with a
water,
bat.
brother.
Yeah. While OG does that, OG's links are in the description box. OG is my friend out of Sinaloa, Mexico. He's been reporting on what's going on out there. He used to be in the mix with those guys, but he reformed his life, and he's just recently got out of prison, and he's talking about almost losing his life and the situations he's been through. This is the first time he's talked about this stuff since he's got out online on a live stream. So we appreciate that. And all right, so was there 3 more times you went to the punishment? You got done for punishment?
Yes, the other times the next 2 times were for me being out after hours, and they basically caught me again. They put me right in the punishment area. But the last time, the 6th time, was different because I was in my cell, and at this time, as I'd been working in that store, I'd sleep there in the night. So they don't lock you down. You're in the store and you just sleep there. Everyone else is locked down around 3. But while I was sleeping there, laying on the floor, someone once again stole, but this time it wasn't just like a stereo or something. And this happens constantly. There's lots of robberies because people have addiction problems, and some of them can't resist, to grab something, as you can imagine. And they're working in a store with all these substances right there in front of them. And he ended up stealing like 7,000 pesos of product, which is like $400, something like that. And that was different because it was how would I say, touchy enough to where someone could lose their life. And they started beating everyone that was there, and luckily they found out who did it. The dude confessed, and another person snitched on him as well. But we all still got sent to the punishment area because they said, well, why didn't you tell us the first time we asked you? Why do we have to, beat you to get the information out of you? And it's because you can't snitch. Even if this dude you're working with stole something and he's getting you in trouble, you can't snitch on him because then everyone in the prison is going to look at you like a snitch, right? So you just got to keep your mouth shut. And if they beat you or whatever happens, happens. There's no telling on people. So that was the last time I got sent to the punishment area. And after that, I decided I wasn't going to work at a cash register or do anything in there because, as they say here, parabola is like when you end up getting in trouble and taking the blame for the actions of another person. And I was tired of that happening. And yeah, I just needed income though too. I don't have family here, and I didn't have a steady source of income. Yeah, that was the only place to actually work and actually make something. So you can buy a little bit better food, you can buy clothes you need, and yeah, they survive because the food in there is nothing great at all. I ended up getting anemia from malnutrition in there, so I had to start taking these little iron pills because the food shit. Excuse me.
So you said you saw some bad things happen to people. What was the first one you saw?
Okay, I don't know how much I can say, but in the punishment area where I was at in the 8, they ended up sticking this dude in the cell. And this is the 4th time I was in the punishment, and the cell he got put in, there was someone who liked to abuse of people, to say the least, right? Now, I could hear everything that was going on. He was 2 cells down, and the dude was telling him, basically that he was gonna have his way with him that night, and the dude was like, "No, no, no, I'm hardcore, whatever." And they got at, they went at it, and the dude who wanted his cheeks beat him down, and actually ended up putting up a blade to his neck, ended up hearing later, and a big blade. And it's crazy because a lot of prisoners have even machetes in there. So don't think it's like in the United States where you have your homemade knives. They all have real knives and stuff that are brought in by the guards or whoever, and they're well armed. So he had his way with this dude all night in the bathroom, and had everyone else in the cell just sit on the floor. And he repeatedly assaulted this younger guy, and it was horrible to hear the noises. and hear this dude crying and just being broke down.
And would that booty bandit, would the fellas try and get to him the next day, or they just let him run? He's like separate, or how's it work?
Well, it's crazy because he was part of the mafia that was in there, and that was his cell. And yeah.
So he had status; he could just do that all day long.
Oh yeah, exactly. Being sent to the punishment area is always a risk because you can be put in a cell with some